Did you hear what happened over here? Did you hear what happened over there? Did you see what happened on the news? Are you up with what's going on social media? Did you hear what Facebook just did? Yeah. There's a lot going on in the world right now. That doesn't even get into our lives with everything going on just locally, like in our houses. The world seems chaotic because the world is chaotic. And a lot of us are feeling overwhelmed right now. But there are things that we can do that our ancestors didn't even have to think about that can help us deal with the overwhelming nature of life. So let's talk about dealing with overwhelm and all of this information that you have to know. Don't you know? Did you not hear what's going on? As we walk together down creation's paths. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
Today, we're going to be talking about overwhelm. That state we've all been in since, 2016 or earlier. That constant state of dread of, one more piece of information will probably break me, and sometimes does, that I can't learn one more fact. I don't have the RAM for this. Yeah, you can hear it in my voice. It's starting to, let's take a deep breath. We're going to be talking about overwhelm and how to deal with that and how our ancestors dealt with that and didn't have to deal with that. But before we get into it, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on the app you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes every week on this podcast. And we have a lot of really interesting things lined up, and you don't want to miss any of it. All right. I know life is overwhelming right now. And we're all feeling it. Like, honestly, I just want to go into a bear cave and sleep for about a month, 2 months, 4 years.
Beyond personal experience, one of the signs I keep seeing of overwhelm is this growing, strong desire to return to simpler times. That desire is born out of overwhelm. Whether a person openly admits it or acknowledges it or not, they're experiencing it.
If you use certain social media websites, it's about to get worse. We're actually going to be talking about practical things that you can do, like maybe which social media you should be using if you want to avoid the overwhelm. Believe it or not, I've actually found a site that I love using. I love going to every day, and I'm not getting overwhelmed on it. And it's not because the site is magical. It's because of how you use it is magical. This is not going to a paid sponsorship by them. I do not endorse the people involved because, as you know, we war against systems, or as Paul said, we war against the powers in high places, not against flesh and blood. But it's a system that we can use to our advantage. I think that is going to be more important than ever in the world that we're currently living in. But first of all, you have to realize this is new. The overwhelm that you're feeling is new and has a predecessor. We can actually see this if we go back to the 1600s. If we go back to the 1600s, you start seeing mentions of this. They didn't use the same language, but this cluster of overwhelming facts and information starting to come in, and it gets worse in the 17 and 1800s. Why? The printing press. It is hard to explain that from all the documentation we have, in Europe, approximately 34 new books were put on the market prior to the year Gutenberg started printing. The year Gutenberg started printing, 9,000 new books were put onto the market.
For me, the easiest way to wrap my head around this understanding is they literally rewrote the calendar, making dramatic changes, taking entire months out of the calendar, and the public was just like, okay, and rolled with it because that constant data stream was not there.
Because it didn't
affect most people. The calendar to them was sun, not sun. Okay, day and night. How many full moons has passed?
Season are we in?
Which season are we in? Is it warm out? Is it really cold out? Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it monsoons? Depending where you live, even that's different. But there wasn't all this constant. And if you think about revamping that level of calendar, now there's so much debate and discussion today and fight over just daylight savings time. We're talking about changing 1 hour, not erasing entire weeks from the calendar.
And People were overwhelmed at 9,000 books. We now have about 9 million books a day.
Yeah,
A day.
a day.
And that's not counting all the blog posts and social media posts and everything. I'm talking about books that go into the system that you can go to Amazon and buy. 9 million books a day. That's insanity. It really is. It's unclean. It is not good for our sanity. It is not good for our hygiene. It's not good for our mental health. It is truly too much information. And that's because we're living through the second print revolution, and that is the digital revolution. I would actually say the fourth. See, a lot of people want to put this at the second. The movable type printing press was really the first major boom in this back with Gutenberg. But once you start getting the journals printed, which would be kind of the 1700s, followed by the periodicals boom of the 1800s, I would count those as the second and the third, because people didn't know how to deal with all of these journals being printed, your almanacs, your more kind of quarterlies, I guess, for what would be how we would think of them now, that were starting to come out. When newspapers came onto the scene in the 1800s, revolutions were started. Wars were literally started. A group of newspapers decided we needed to invade Cuba and just crafted a story out of whole cloth about why Cuba was the devil and we needed to we needed to invade. We needed to invade the Philippines. So here's an entire story about why Spain is the devil, and just made it up. And you might remember that period of time in school as the period of yellow journalism, where people were just making stuff up to get what they wanted. Well, the internet, and especially social media, is this fourth big boom. And I know I'm not saying anything that you don't already know, but you really need to put this in context. So many people are like, I don't know what it would be like to live through historic times. This is a historic time. We are experiencing something akin to that Gutenberg press, that invention of the newspaper, the invention of television, radio. And because we're living through it, it's hard to see the magnitude of what we are currently living through. But now anybody can say whatever they want. Anybody can have the opinion that they want, and anybody can get caught in the thought bubble that they want and only listen to people that already agree with them. This has always been a problem. I grew up in the 80s, and those bubbles, for all the people that want to blame the internet for those information bubbles, I grew up in an evangelical church in the 80s, and we were getting our news from CBN. We were taking our marching notes from the preacher. We had various evangelical networks telling us what to think and believe about various things and how the news was lying about this stuff. It's existed before the internet. The internet just made it a lot more easy, a lot easier.
It's accessibility. It's
Yeah.
accessibility, and the tools have changed. But that's what's dramatically changed in that.
What's important to realize here is the overwhelm is the point. The purpose is to keep you overwhelmed. That's true for several reasons. One, most of these networks are making money off of ads, and they only get ads if you keep scrolling. So if they're not creating anxiety in you, you won't keep scrolling. See, they did the work, they did the studies, and found out that if you go to social media and you get happy, you tend to leave, go about your day.
A perfect example of this, a lot of us just went through, at least in the US, there was a giant front that went through, a lot of snow, ice. It was important for the news and for the weather to report in advance so people could prepare. Now, there's a responsible way of reporting where during the weather hour, this way those seeking that information, and on the weather sites, those seeking that information can go out, seek that ahead of time in advance to know. But I know like one of our local apps, and they did the news on the news hour, they did the weather in the weather hour, but the app was pushing alerts about every hour, a week ahead of time. The general public, most people don't need that level of information and data. All it did was create a mass panic.
Yep.
In the citizens, looking at some of the social media reactions was kind of the same way. There was such a panic, and we were in that fortunate space in between the two bad sides of that front. We were actually set up to not be that bad off. Like, yes, the public need to be notified. We need to be prepared. But
And north of us, a lot of places still don't have power.
yeah, they still don't have power north of us. Yes, it was bad that there was a need to alert, a need to notify, but they got views off of that constant panic. That generated revenue.
And so what we need to be doing is not rejecting the new tools. I see this in a lot of places where it's like, well, I'm just going to opt out. I'm just going to opt out. Well, here's my problem with that. If you are opting out, then you will not know.
Yeah.
And yes, there's some things that I need to know about.
Back to that previous example. You need to know if a bad weather front's coming because you need to make sure you have preparation and supplies for if you're going to lose power for days possibly.
But I also need to be able to have those connections with my community in ways that honestly I can't really have with my chronic illness and chronic pain and everything. I can't just go out to a community center. Plus, there are no community centers here that I could go out to. So we don't need to isolate ourselves further. What we need to do is act smarter. Now, at the beginning of the podcast, I said if you use certain social media tools, this is about to get worse. We don't like calling people out by name. We like to try to keep these more open and useful and not talk about specifics. But if you use anything produced by Meta, that's Instagram, Threads, or Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg just announced that he has it on good authority that people are sad that they're not seeing more political content on their apps. So they're going to tweak their algorithms to feed people more political content. I don't know who Mark Zuckerberg was talking to other than when he went down to Mar-a-Lago and had dinner with the orange one. I don't know who he's talking to that's saying this, but everyone that I know, everyone that I talk to is like, I need a vacation. I need an escape from all the politicization and political stuff. I need to step back. This is overwhelming. This is too much. So if you're using Instagram, Threads, or Facebook, you need to realize that there is a wave that is starting and only going to get worse of more and more and more of that because it's good for his bottom line. The more it enrages people, the more people are going to use the app, the more ad revenue he can make. That's his only interest in this. Now, I said at the beginning that I had a solution for this. It is not a perfect solution, but it is a good example of the kind of solutions we need to be looking for. I have been spending a lot of time on Blue Sky over the last few months, about half a year, I think. I can't remember when I got my Blue Sky account for the first time, but I've been spending a lot of time over there. And this is not me singing their praises. Remember, all systems are our enemies because all systems tend towards corruption. All systems need to be properly maintained or they fall apart. All systems are inherently flawed. I am not saying this particular company good, all other companies bad. No one should ever say anything like that. All systems are inevitably going to get corrupted. That's why constant vigilance and maintenance is always important. Okay. But the way they're looking at making money is off of selling features. And they're working on their feature set. They have user-based controls over what you see. So you can block people, you can subscribe to block lists, you can create your own block lists. In fact, my friends and I have mutual block lists that we subscribe to each other's block lists. So when they block somebody, we all block somebody because we're only blocking people with very bad ill intent that apparently we're not allowed to say on YouTube, because every time we even try a euphemism over there, our videos are not shown to people. Not that I'm bitter, but I'm a little bit bitter. But it's not frivolous. We trust each other. If you put somebody on a list to never be shown again, it was obviously for a reason. And so we are kind of hoping to protect each other from some of the bots that are out there, from some of the bad actors that are out there, some of the grifters that are out there. That is powerful because we have created community tools amongst ourselves to help make sure that we're all good. Also, every post, there are 3 dots there. You can click those 3 dots and tell it to mute either the person talking, the hashtags that they used, or words that are in there forever or for a period of time. And I know what you might be thinking, other social media networks have that as well. Yes, but it's not right there. You usually have to dig into the interface and find the place to put it in. Right there, you see a message that's causing you stress and you're just like, I can't take this right now. Don't show me anything about this thing for 7 days. Because I use that a lot, especially when a big thing happens that I just can't process. I need processing time to think about it. Or when I know all of the early information coming out is going to be half-truths and uncertainties and speculation, I will mute it for 7 days so that I don't have to be in that speculation cycle.
I like to think about that in terms of either a thing or a person being toxic. It's toxic stuff because toxic it depends on the individual. So you can go, what is toxic for me? What is corrosive for me? What is bad for me? Sometimes a person's name, because the news going around it, it might be their name is toxic for now. Like you said, maybe I need a week of not hearing that name or anything related to that name. For the next week, I need a vacation from that person. They go in the toxic bucket. They're temporarily banned, and then they're gone. And this way, then you're not exposing yourself to toxic materials, because that's the thing with Overwhelm. It's all about how much of that poison is building up in you,
Well, remember,
or how much toxicity is building up.
the poison is in the dose.
Yes.
And everybody forgets that water is necessary for life. If you're not drinking water, you will die. Like if you go out into the desert, no water, you got 3 days, then you're gone. You drink a gallon of water in less than an hour, you will thin your blood and die. The poison is in the dose. Everything can be toxic if it's taken in too much. There are certain topics. I try not to ban anything permanently. And if I am going to ban something permanently, it's usually because somebody got it on a ban list, because there are topics I don't want to hear about, but I don't want to hear from people that support those ideas, like the people that walk like certain birds.
That's why I like toxicity also, because there's degrees of toxic. Like there's some things that are toxic that are just like, if you have some minor exposure, you're going to be all right. But a lot of exposure. So some individuals that are super toxic, yeah, they go on the ban list. They're done.
Because remember, the power of Overwhelm is that it makes you feel, one, isolated, and two, powerless. It is hard to feel overwhelmed in a crowd, mainly because crowds will go feral very quickly. This is the power of crowds we don't talk about too much. Yes, crowds can, you give a thing of beans and ask people how many beans are in the jar, the crowd can get very, very close if you average together all of their estimations. Also, crowds will default to fight, flight, or freeze.
Yep.
Unless they're a circle. If you're holding hands, if you're in conversation with each other, you can break that fight, flight, or freeze. And that's what we need right now, is more community, more connection, and less isolation. If you want to get out of your feeling of overwhelm, yeah, you might not want to know anything more about this situation happening over there, or maybe you have some PTSD triggers that I just can't deal with anything on this topic. Fair, I have some of those myself, and you can just block those terms, or do what I do, is I have them on variant numbers of days that I'm just going to be free from that. And then I see it come back into my feed and I can decide at the time, like, am I able to deal with this? Am I able to cope with this? Like I said, I don't like putting topics on permanent block, because if a topic's on a permanent block, the people that are talking about it probably should either be unfollowed or blocked. Do you get what I'm saying? More than the topic itself. Sometimes a tragedy happens, like what happened in New Orleans, for example. And I just can't right now. With everything going on in my life, I don't have the spoons to give to that. And my heart goes out to everybody down there, and I don't want to do the thoughts and prayers because I, like the rest of the world, are tired of the thoughts and prayers, even though they do get my thoughts and prayers. They also need to get the action, but I just don't have the spoons. With everything going on in my life, in my community, in my state right now, I don't have the spoons for that right now. So I can put that over on the, don't tell me anything about this for a week. Why? Because in that first week, it's just going to be speculation. It's just going to be people gossiping. It's just going to be bad actors trying to get their way on the topic, And in about a week, we'll start actually hearing stuff that actually matters, like what actually happened, what was actually going down. True information will start coming back in. And at that point, when that ban goes away, actual information is showing up. And a lot of that hysteria, a word I don't like using, but I'm not sure what a proper word is. Let me know in the comments what a better word for that is.
Yeah, because I think that kind of works in this application.
Except for its misogynistic overtones, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah, because you're talking about that kind of frenzy.
It's that frenzied,
self-feeding frenzy that kind of builds generally with lack of information.
That mass delusion that happens anytime a major media event occurs. Like I had to do this with the passing of Jimmy Carter. Not because I don't have thoughts about Jimmy Carter or have feelings about that, but I knew all of the things people were going to say, either for or against him. And I just didn't need my timeline to be filled with all that right now.
Yeah.
Just because, again, Jimmy Carter was a good man, seemed to have done a lot of good work. My plate is full. I don't have spoons to give to Jimmy, and I think Jimmy would be the first person to understand that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have the spoons right now. My heart goes out to the family, thoughts and prayers, blah, blah, blah. But again, that's a platitude and that's not helpful. I'm not adding anything. So give it a week. Maybe some good information will come back later, but I just can't right now. And that is okay. Learning to say, I just can't right now.
Because that is a lot of what this is about, is coping mechanisms. How do you cope with overwhelm when it starts to build? Part of that is spotting it, seeing when you're starting to suffer from overwhelm. And then the second part is, what do you do to try to
Stop.
mitigate the problem?
Because that's really what this is all about. Remember, the powers that be are trying to keep us divided, confused, so that they can just do what they want to do. Remember, and we're going to be talking about this a lot, especially until people get it ingrained into the system, their system. Systems are flawed. We are raging against systems, not people. The systems are the problem. The systems are what we need to either take down, repair, fix, or completely reinvent. Because the people are cogs in that machine. If you take out the people, new people will come in and fit the hole left in the system for them. And that's true with all of this. Getting rid of social media, or getting rid of watching whatever news channels you were watching, or cutting the news out of your life, is not going to work to get rid of your overwhelm if you are not fixing the system itself. Because if you're just not listening to the news and ruminating about the last thing that you heard, you're still going to be in that state of overwhelm. You have to get to a place of self-healing. You have to get to a place where you are working on self-care and actually bringing yourself together. And that's why I don't think a lot of the solutions that I see out there work. Like, why I like Blue Sky is you can follow feeds based on your interests. So I've got my witch feed and my druid feed, and I've got my various cartoonists feeds and some bands that I like and what have you, right? So yeah, sometimes the news is overwhelming. So kind of silence and mute that for a little while, but I can reconnect to this music that I like, this art that I like, these communities that I enjoy having conversations with and spending time with. That's healing. That reconnection is what helps us to actually deal with overwhelm when it hits us, because overwhelm makes you feel alone, isolated, and drowning. You got to have those lifelines. You got to have those lifelines. And don't worry about how silly those lifelines might be. Maybe your lifelines are literally cat videos on YouTube. Then watch your cat videos on YouTube. There's nothing wrong with that. There is no judgment in that, right? If it's helping you, look, my happy place is I watch sheep getting sheared, pianos getting tuned, and jewelry getting repaired. I also watch an Irish carpentry channel where he just pretty much remakes axe handles and hammer handles and hammers and stuff. He makes other stuff too, but it's primarily axe hammer handles and stuff. It's not change your life content, right? Especially not for me. I'm not going to be making stuff. I'm not a good woodworker like that. You're never going to do piano repair or fixing rings and stuff. It's not utilitarian, but there's something healing about watching this broken ring get fixed, watching these neglected sheep get brought back to themselves. There's something healing in that for me. So that's what I watch unapologetically. And I share some of them with other people because some of those videos are just astounding. Like, did you know about Colombian sheep? They're the size of ponies. They're gigantic.
That's the thing too, when you find something that works, may only work for your life situation for that moment. Like, I like watching various cooking videos and stuff, but if I've got a lot going on, if I'm already overwhelmed with recipes and cooking ideas and dishes and planning menus and this and the other, then I actually have to I have to stay away from all of it. And that has to be removed because I already have a surplus, or I have to find something else to help me recharge so that I can still bask in those ideas for inspiration, but not be overwhelmed.
So don't get fooled with the idea that dealing with overwhelm is simply about either keeping your head above water or turning off the spigot. Yeah, those are important. Do those things. But if you're not reaching out for somebody else's hand, either literally in your friend group, let your friends know that you're feeling overwhelmed. Let people know what you're going through. That's very important. But also finding those things that do lift you up, that are uplifting for you, whatever that is. Go for a nature walk. Spend some time petting your cat, right? Whatever it is, do those things as well. Because the true downside of overwhelm is isolation. And if you want to combat that, you have to become connected. And if you're only connected to people on those issues that overwhelm you, well, find a crochet circle or a knitting circle or a quilting circle or a prayer group or a cat lovers anonymous, something, right? Find something else outside of that particular issue. Because I get it. There's a lot of things in the world, and we can't give in to this new Puritanism that tells us if we're not 100% every day focused on these problems or this particular problem, because a lot of them are myopic and only see the problem that they're focused on, then we are in fact the baddies. No, if you get burnt out, you're not able to help anybody. The whole point of us doing this as a group is that new people can go to the front lines and keep pushing on those issues while others go to the back and rejuvenate and get healed up so that they can go back and relieve others so that we can keep that cycle going. And if we're not doing that, that's how the system wins. And I hear a lot of talk about the establishment, and I am not worried about the establishment. I'm worried about the system that keeps up those who are in power, because whoever's in power becomes the establishment. It's the system that's the problem. It's the systems that need to be changed, fixed, and challenged. And this system of overwhelm is specifically there so that we will stop paying attention and let all the bad actors get away with everything that they want to get away with. So take your time off, rest, recuperate, do your self-care so that you can come back fresh and ready for the fight. I hope this was helpful. I would love to know in the comments, how do you deal with overwhelm? I've shared some of my favorite things to do. I don't know why I like watching sheep shearing videos so much, but maybe it's watching all that burden get taken off. That it's just cathartic. Seeing all that burden getting removed would make sense. How do you deal with your overwhelm? Where are your favorite places to go? What are your silly pleasures that really help you to unwind? Let me know in the comments. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say that you can leave a comment, they won't let us know. So you leave a comment there because engagement is magic. And then head over to creationspast.com, click on chat, and you leave a comment there, and we'll be able to see it and respond to you. While you're there, if you happen to have a few dollars you can pass our way, you can think about joining a membership. We offer monthly and annual memberships over there. Also, just get involved in the community. That's what we're here for. We're trying to build something up. You can follow us on Blue Sky. If you go to creationspast.com on Blue Sky, that's the name of our account over there. You can see both Brian and I have our personal accounts linked from there, and you can connect to us and talk to us directly over there because we both spend a lot of time over there. If you don't have any money right now, or you just don't know that we're somebody that you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, I completely understand that. But if you know anybody that you think would like or benefit from any of our content, please share it with them. We do this for the pure love of the conversation and trying to actually help people out. And as we're heading out today, let's say a little prayer to what I feel is the patron saint of overwhelm. Oh, Prophet Jeremiah, who struggled and complained and moaned and got broken and beaten down by everything that his world sent to him, and yet persevered and made it through to the other side. Help us to wield that mighty sword that you have in heaven, to cut through truth and lies, to divide from us those things that are bringing us harm from those things that bring us healing and hope, so that we can get to the other side and be strong. Amen.
Amen.